Hi everyone, so today we are going to learn about norma basalis externa. That means the basal view or the inferior view of the skull. So this is a complicated structure, but it is very essential for the purpose of understanding because it provides passageway for many vital neurovascular channels. So today we'll be learning about the norma basalis. First of all, we'll see the bones which are present in norma basalis. So this purple colored bone which is present from anterior to posterior, we'll be seeing the bone. So this purple colored bone which is present anteriorly, which is lodging the maxillary teeth, are is maxilla. So this is the maxillary bone. This is the zygomatic process of maxillary bone, the alveolar arch of maxillary bone, and the palatine processes of maxillary bone. So next is the zygomatic bone. This blue colored bone is the zygomatic bone, and this is the temporal process of zygomatic bone, which forms the anterior one third of the zygomatic arch. Next is the sphenoid bone. So sphenoid bone basically forms the major portion of middle part of norma basalis. So this red colored bone on both sides is the sphenoid bone. Next is the temporal bone. So this is the temporal bone, and this is the zygomatic process of temporal bone forming the posterior portion of the zygomatic arch. So the most posterior bone which is seen in norma basalis is the occipital bone. Now this bone, which is present posterior to maxilla and forms the posterior portion of the hard palate, is the palatine bone. And lastly, this green colored bone is the vomer bone. So these are the bones of norma basalis. Now for the purpose of understanding, we have divided norma basalis into three parts by two arbitrary transverse line. So this first arbitrary transverse line, it goes from the posterior end of the hard palate. So this, and the posterior transverse line, it passes through the anterior portion of the foramen magnum. So these two lines divide the norma basalis into three parts for the purpose of understanding. First is the anterior part, second is the middle part, and third is the posterior part. In this video, we will be seeing anterior part of norma basalis in detail. So this is the anterior part of norma basalis. It has two major portions. So first is the alveolar arch, and second is the hard palate. This whole portion is the hard palate. So this alveolar arch, it is basically formed by maxillary bone. So this is the maxillary process, alveolar process of maxillary bone. It has sockets for lodging the roots of maxillary teeth. So this major portion is the alveolar arch, which is the alveolar process of maxillary bone. It is formed by maxillary bone and it has sockets for lodgement of the maxillary teeth. Now second major part is the hard palate. So hard palate is basically formed by two bones. This purple colored bone, which is maxilla, and here the posterior part is formed by palatine bone. So the maxillary bone and palatine bone, they together form the hard palate. So maxillary bone, it has the two palatine processes, one on each side. This palatine process and palatine process on the other side, both of these, they form the anterior two-third of the maxilla, anterior two-third of the hard palate. So palatine process of maxilla, and the posterior one-third of the hard palate, this portion is formed by palatine bone, and these two plates of palatine bone which form the posterior part of the hard palate are called the horizontal plates of the palatine bone. So we can say that hard palate is formed by two bones. First is the palatine process of maxillary bone, both sides, and second is the horizontal plates of palatine bone on both sides. So this is how the hard palate is formed. Now this portion of the palatine bone which is present posteriorly, this pyramidal shaped structure is called as pyramidal process of palatine bone. So here we see that there are two major parts of the anterior part of norma basalis. First is the alveolar arch, which is formed by maxillary bone, and second is the hard palate, which is formed by the palatine process of maxillary bones, and horizontal plates of palatine bones. So this is about the bones which are present in anterior part of norma basalis. Now this hard palate is a dome shaped structure and it has many pits on the surface of it, which lodges the palatine salivary glands, which are the minor salivary glands. Coming to other structures which are present in norma basalis, so we'll start with the sutures. So there are basically three sutures which form a cruciform structure in the hard palate, or a cross-shaped structure in the hard palate. So first suture is present between the two palatine processes of maxillary bone. This is called as intermaxillary suture. So this one is the intermaxillary suture which is present on between both the palatine processes of maxillary bone. Then there is presence of a suture between the horizontal plates of palatine bone on both sides. This is the interpalatine suture. And lastly, this horizontal suture which is present between the maxillary bone and the palatine bone is called as the palatomaxillary suture. So these three sutures together form a cruciform structure in the hard palate. Then other structures which are seen in anterior part of norma basalis is first is the incisive fossa. So this is a large fossa which is present in the midline in the anterior most portion of the intermaxillary suture. So this is the incisive fossa. It has two canals within it, the right incisive canal and the left incisive canal. Both these canals are present one on each side, but sometimes they are present in the midline itself. So these incisive canals, they basically gives the passageway to the nasopalatine nerve and greater palatine vessels. Next structure which is seen in the hard palate is the greater palatine foramen. So here is a large foramen which is present just behind the lateral part of palatomaxillary suture. This is called the greater palatine foramen. This foramen gives passageway to the greater palatine nerve and vessels. Then behind this greater palatine foramen, there are 2 to 3 small foramina which is present or which usually perforate the pyramidal process of palatine bone. These foramina are called as lesser palatine foramina. They give passageway to the lesser palatine nerve and vessels. The next structure is this ridge-shaped elevation which is present near the posterior border of the hard palate. So this ridge-shaped elevation which starts from the greater palatine foramen and runs medially is called as the palatine crest. And lastly, there is presence of a spine in the posterior end of the hard palate, which is called as posterior nasal spine. So with this, we come to an end to the all the structures which are present in the anterior part of norma basalis. In upcoming videos, we will be learning about the middle and posterior parts of norma basalis. Thank you.